You notice the panic in the opposition? Ask yourselves, why are they panicking? What are they worried about? Why will they not support this law? So let's deal with this bill. I noticed the UNC, the opposition, is hard at work trying to create fear and panic about this law. First of all, this law is intended to ask a court, and only a court of law, to get a recommendation from a civil asset trustee. The civil asset trustee is appointed by the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister, as it relates to one person, and by the Judicial and Legal Services Commission, as it relates to two people. They are insulated from any form of political interference. If the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister can't agree, then the President, in her sole discretion, appoints that person. The trust manager is appointed only by the President in her sole discretion. That agency, which has those trustees in it, that agency is the agency which goes to court after the Director of Public Prosecutions tells the agency, I want you to go to court and ask for civil asset forfeiture. So let's put this simply. There is no government involved in this. There is no police involved in this. This is the Director of Public Prosecutions telling a hand-picked by the President and by the Judicial Legal Services Commission agency, who are insulated away from politicians, that they, the agency, must approach the court, and the court must decide, after hearing all people, both parties and any third party, whether property should be forfeited. The law specifically proposes that if you are a bona fide purchaser for value without notice, meaning if you had no participation in a crime, you bought your property legitimately from somebody, you bought that property not knowing that a gang leader owned it or that a criminal owned it, you have nothing to worry about. So the law specifically says that. We go further. There can be no forfeiture unless a court says so. In our country, the highest court of this land is the Privy Council. That means the High Court has to say yes. The Court of Appeal has to say yes. The Privy Council has to say yes on the recommendation of the Director of Public Prosecutions, acting through independent agents in the agency. Only after all of that can your asset be forfeited. Now, there's something in this bill which is revolutionary. It's called Explain Your Wealth. We all know in Trinidad and Tobago of gang members, supposedly. Everybody knows who a criminal is. We see criminals liming on the block, thick gold chains, big cars, unemployed people, happily prospering in our communities. Do you feel safe with these people around? We've designed a law called the Unexplained Wealth Order, and we're in the middle of Parliament right now. We expect the opposition and the government to sit down in the Committee of the Whole, where we come up with recommendations. The government has amendments to put to the floor. What we will be proposing to the Parliament is that a very senior police officer acting in an investigation concerning proceeds of crime. What does that include? Fraud, gang activity, trafficking in drugs, serious crimes. We're saying that a senior police officer should be allowed to knock on the door of the court if he is in an investigation for a serious matter under the Proceeds of Crime Act, and ask the court to have that person come forward and explain their wealth. That means the drug dealer who does nothing all day long other than collect money from drugs and buy a lot of assets, he's going to have a problem in trying to explain to a court how he acquired those assets legitimately. This law has a very special safeguard built into it. It allows the court to hear anybody that has an interest in the property, somebody who inherited it, somebody who bought it, somebody who may have been occupying it, anybody, somebody who has a mortgage on it, somebody who's renting it, anybody who has an interest in property which may be the subject of a forfeiture order has the right to approach the court. It is not true to say that these things are automatically forfeited. This is for the court to decide, because only the court will be able, after a very careful examination and after hearing from the people who are affected, only a court will be able to say whether this is really truly crime which is being hidden or not. The opposition has been saying through their spokesmen and spokeswomen on social media that the government came to Parliament and supposedly took out a 3/5 majority clause in the bill. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a complete case of fake news. This law came to Parliament as a simple majority bill because it does not require a special majority. This law is similar, for instance, to other laws in our country. It's similar to what we call the common law. It's something which is recognized by the courts under something called due process. Look, it's really very simple if I break down the Constitution. You have the right to the enjoyment of your property. You have the right to certain privileges, provided that there is due process. Due process means that you are safe in having a simple majority passage if you make sure that the court is supervising what happens. In this law, we're making sure no asset forfeiture can happen until a court of law decides so. No asset forfeiture can be recommended until the DPP tells the agency to approach the court to ask for forfeiture. You see, by now you should know the UNC has a very simple rule book. Don't support, allege that you need special majority, ask for a joint select committee, kill it inside of the joint select committee, and then make sure that nothing happens in Trinidad and Tobago. We won't be caught by that. In any event, if the UNC is so confident that this law requires a special majority, that's what the courts are there for. They threatened to go to court for a special majority when the law to abolish child marriage came. The government's role in this job is to pass the law.